Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, the place for heat, information, conversation, and consternation. You can be there all day long if you'd like. Explore our 10 channels and the stage shows. We'll be getting back to some draft stage shows here soon. If you click on the link in the description, $2.99 per month. You can try it, cancel it anytime, and you will bypass the Apple upcharge. So check it out. It's Off the Floor, link right here in the description. Also check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. Make the NBA season interesting. Have some money on it. Go to prizepicks.com. Use the code 5 FIVE. Again, that's FIVE. FIVE. It is legal in the state of Florida, and you can play on just about anything. Pair up to 6 players together at Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. The Heat's losing streak keeps going. It's at 8. We keep going with podcast episodes. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and Five Reasons Sports. Got Brady Hawk. You can follow me at Brady Hawk 305. Make sure to check out some of the recent episodes we've done that might have gotten buried. Continued the draft series with Matt Hannafin. Been doing that with him and Digital Adele, so check that out on the feed. Also did a pretty extensive episode on Pat Riley and Heat culture. Pat's 80th birthday coming up here on the 20th. We're recording this on the 18th. And this is not the highest point in Pat's tenure. So we got into kind of where that stands at this stage, while also getting into obviously what he's contributed to the franchise over the years. So check that one out. That seems to be our most popular episode of late, not surprisingly. Today we're going to talk about Kel'el Ware because we have hit a milestone. There aren't many milestones left in the season, but Kel'el Ware has now played 50 games. And, we're gonna look at where he is and also where this is going. I'm going to give you his overall stats here at this point. And before we get into, again, some of the nitty gritty of it, you've got Brady Hawk. You can follow me at Brady Hawk 305. Through 50 games, he's started 22 of them. He's averaged a little under 21 minutes. He's shooting 55% from the floor, includes 63% from two. He's at 32% from three on 1.8 attempts, averaging just one free throw attempt per game. Averaging 6.5 rebounds, 1 assist, and a block, and 8.6 points. We had a lot of conversations about Ware before the season when we thought this was going to be a different kind of season. When we thought we were getting motivated contract year Jimmy Butler. We're going to do an episode, by the way, about the 5 things we were most wrong about. I feel like we're going to need about 100 of those. But if I was to say to you before the year that this is where Kel'el's numbers would be through 50 games of playing, and I guess for the Heat, it's what, 66 total? I don't even know where we're at. 66, 68 in total. Would you have projected him to have played and done more at this point or less?
Probably less when in the terms of what we thought this season was going to be. We thought maybe he could compete for the backup spot, but even that I was skeptical just because of the history of Spo not playing kind of rookie bigs. But then we saw what the other options looked like, and we saw what Thomas Bryant and Kevin Love were providing. So it was pretty quick transition. Definitely didn't expect him to kind of get to the starting spot. But I'd say more than the bare numbers, I think I was more interested in seeing the peaks. Like, we know there's going to be these lows. There's going to be certain things where there's going to be games where there's lapses defensively or offensively. He gets bullied. But you want to see the peaks where there's the parts where he can score, 20, when he can, get into a flow where he's just the guy over the top constantly defensively, where there's games where he has 6 blocks, where he looks engaged, where he kind of finds his role around the basket and just deters a bunch of shots. So that stuff has been good. I think there's been clear takeaways to take into the offseason, which is important, which is why when you have, a mediocre team is what we thought they were going to be. But when you have a bad team, you want to see your first round rookie be evaluated in a real season. So then you can take it into the offseason and make those shifts. And a lot of those shifts that we're seeing is, number one, we said it, when he got drafted, but getting stronger. I think there's just certain matchups like there was the one against the Clippers specifically that I think is going to be that film is going to be taken into the offseason just because those are the bigs that it's not like he's going to get bullied by the best, bigs in the league. Like that stuff, that's a given. Like a lot of players are getting bullied by the best players in the league. But like there's like that build of like a Zubac, just those bigger veteran bigs that can get on the block and just want to just play the post. And are good on the offensive boards and kind of push you around and box out. Those are the matchups he has prepared for. That's the stuff that he has to get stronger, mostly probably with his lower body, just because I just feel like for his entire life, his entire young career, it's just been about jumping in the air and grabbing rebounds because he's 7 foot and he could grab the rebound over anybody at the college or high school level. And now in the NBA, that's not the case. You have to get position. You have to kind of find advantages against these other guys. So that's going to be that. But like, as much as that's a negative, to me, that's a positive because you got a 50-game sample size of what he is and what he needs to improve on. And that's just one of the things. So in a lost season, that's why I'm at the point now where it's like, we talked about it before, but I almost just want to play Keyshawn Johnson, Pelle Larson, all these guys because in a lost season, see what you have. And if they're not that, if, some of your two-way guys are not that, you know what you have. And you can change them out in the offseason and go look for new talent in the draft and provide new two-ways. So it's about, evaluating your youth.
How do you think being in and out of the starting lineup has affected him? Because I find it odd that Spo's doing some matchup-related stuff now. I know he's just trying to get a game. That's why this idea that he's tanking. I'm sorry, they're just bad. I know people want a different excuse for this. They're just bad. When they sit Hero and Bam, then we'll have the tanking conversation. I don't see them as tanking right now, as I've said over and over. I don't even think the organization wants the outcome that the fans want, which is to keep the draft pick this year. Unless it's going to be it's like if it's caught in the middle, then it doesn't really make sense for them anyway, because they lose the protections of the other pick. But do you think it's been problematic for him that we've seen? I mean, I'm looking over his last 5, for instance, okay? And he plays 19 minutes against the Knicks. He doesn't start. He's 5 of 6 from the floor, 10 points. Game before against Memphis, he does start. The whole team was awful. He plays 36 minutes, but he does get 19-11. A lot of that was in garbage time. Game before against Boston, he doesn't start. He plays 15 minutes. He has 7 points, 3 rebounds. The game before that, he does start against Clippers, but he's yanked early. I think they pulled him to start the second half. He had 18 minutes, 4 points, 7 rebounds. Then in the game before that, Charlotte, which kind of really started this drop off. He started. He played 23 minutes. He had 2 points, 5 rebounds. Is this good? Does this matter?
It does matter to me. I think he was in a good place. Specifically offensively with the new, starting lineup and Bam lineup, not the new starting lineup. I'll just say the big front court, where I thought he understood his role, at least on both ends of the floor. Like I thought he found a decent rhythm defensively where, he had those games where he had a bunch of blocks and he was they were pushing him down into the lane. And he knew he was going to have to be a semi-helper if his guy pulled to the corner. And if not, he was a guy that was just going to block shots and deter shots around the rim. Offensively, I thought it was, his role was a little bit more simplified with Bam, where he was working that baseline if he wasn't the screener. And if Bam was on that baseline or wing, he was the screener going to the basket, where it was just him flipping on and off. And we were always worried about those two working together. I thought it worked pretty well. So I thought them leading into that helped him specifically. And in all those games, you mentioned the minutes, he was playing like 30, 35 minutes. It was a game where I think he played 40. So I thought that was a good thing just for the fact I want him to play, I just want the guy to play. I want him to start. I want him to figure it out. I've said 8 games ago before this losing streak, I don't really care what things look like at the end of games. You're probably going to lose the game anyway, as we've seen. I'd rather Kel'el just close games because I want him to get those reps. I want him to figure things out. And if there's there's going to be mess ups no matter who you put in that closing line with what we've seen lately. But at least let Kel'el kind of get those reps going into the offseason to see what you have once again. I think that's just an important factor. But I think it has the in and out stuff, I think, has impacted him a little bit. Like, well, number one, he has hit scouting reports. I think that's been clear with a lot of these teams. Like when he had that hot streak over that like 5 to 6 game stretch, teams started picking up that they're just not going to let him get behind that second layer of defense. They're not going to let that lob happen over and over. But as we've seen, as much as they plan for it, the good thing is he's still able to get to it. Like it's not one of those things where you game plan against and it's shut down. When you're a 7-footer like that can go up and get a lob, like you can go over the top. It doesn't help that they don't have the best lob throwers in the world, but they've had a few opportunities. I mean, Davion's got him on a bunch. Tyler and Duncan obviously have improved in that area. So, like, you've seen opportunities, but I just felt like he was under control of what his role was when he was with Bam and then kind of getting away from that starting lineup. And then he's playing back up big in these ugly lineups. Like, let's be clear. Like, he's playing with the second unit, but it's an ugly second unit he's playing with. So there's just no real structure, rhythm offensively that's helping him out. So, I mean, down the stretch of the season, 14 games left? I just say forget matchups. Start Ware, let him get a bunch of reps, get him reps with your main guys, different guys, because if the whole thing here is evaluating your core, it's not evaluating Kel'el Ware next to Kyle Anderson and Terry Rozier.
Well, and I think the loss of Jovic has hurt in this situation because there was a natural chemistry between the two of them, particularly when they were coming off the bench together. And then it took a little bit of time for Nico to find his footing without Ware, when Ware went to the starting lineup. And then Nico's been out. I mean, I saw something yesterday. I'm on a group chat with some Heat fans, and bless their hearts. One of them said, well, this all went to hell when Jovic got hurt. I don't know about that. I mean, but I do think that he mattered for certain, just to give them some offensive punch off the bench. And again, I think specifically for Ware. Before we go to the break here, and then I want to project Kel'el forward. Why do you think Spo has done this? Where I mean, he made the hard decision to put him in the starting lineup. Then the Jimmy thing kind of blew up. They did play together a couple times as starters, I believe. Then the Jimmy thing blew up, and then it seemed like, well, why not just commit? Is this just him searching? It's not him tanking, okay? It's not. But is it just him, or is he trying to show? I don't know. Is he trying to make Kel'el re-earn it? Like I don't really get the reasoning for not just living with the results at this point. Like what do they have to lose at all?
Yeah, we know how he is with those young bigs, and I just see so many times, specifically at the home games when I'm watching, like how annoyed he gets by Ware's lapses. Like, let's be honest. Like I think Kel'el, like I said, is not perfect. He's making mistakes on the fly. Like there's defensive lapses, like clear defensive lapses during runs that are happening. But there's other lapses that are happening with other guys in the rotation that are overlooked. So I think that's more so the problem is like, let's have an even scale if that's the way we're treating this. If we're treating this like a game 7, let's pull the plug on everybody that makes those mistakes. But I think Ware has kind of been in this place where it's also a fact of this has always been their learning curve. Like they've always treated these guys like this, like nothing's going to be given. If they make a mistake, they're going to get pulled to the bench and they're going to hear about it and they're going to learn from it. So all that stuff is fine, but they've never been in a scenario where they might drop out of the 10 seed in the play-in when they're dealing with this. That's why I think there needs to be a reevaluation here where it's like, just let this guy go. But there's definitely been some issues. Like offensively, I think he had that hot streak from 3 where the 3 ball was just dropping when he's playing really well. I think he was like 6 for 36 since that point. Like he's kind of been letting that 3 fly. Every time he shoots it, I just don't really think it's dropping. I just think it's kind of one of those lazy shots he takes where it's like giving up on the possession instead of like trying to earn it down the block a little bit. I like some of the stuff. There's been stuff where that push shot in the lane, I think, is something that could be developed. Like I thought him getting to that is interesting. Like I want to see more of different stuff. Like it doesn't always have to be the spot of 3 or the lob down the lane. Like I just want to see them open up the playbook for him a little bit down the stretch of the season. Like see what else is there. Because then you can see what's worked on. Like I don't expect him to be sitting there on the block posting up. Like he's not strong enough for that. That's not what you're going to do. But if you get him a look, get him the ball in the low post, he could turn around into that nice push shot that he's developed. So just let that guy play. Just let him play a bunch of minutes. Let him figure it out. Let him play with Bam. Let him play with Tyler. And then if you want to complain about the things that he's doing wrong, do it in the offseason.
I'm with you on it. Something you may want to do on the off season is move when you have the time. I want to tell you about another of our sponsors. And then on the other side of this, I want to get into kind of where we think Ware's future is after 50 games of the season. And now it's time for Who's on the Move, sponsored by our friends over at Cousins USA Moving and Storage, family owned and operated since 1996. They can service both residential and commercial moves, whether you're going across town, across the state, across country, and even across the globe. They have a 15,000 square foot private warehouse in Lauderhill, Broward County. The number one priority for Cousins Moving is transparency and being honest with their customers. They have a very low turnover, with most of their movers working for them for over 10 years. So find them online at Cousins Moving on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or visit the website at www.cousinsusa.com/5RSN. They've got an exclusive offer through 5RSN. You get 5 free wardrobe boxes with your next move, so there's no need to pack your clothes away in suitcases. Just mention 5 reasons. And now, who's on the move? All right, well, I would assume that we're going to go into next season with Ware as the starter, right? Do you see any scenario where they backtrack from that? I mean, I'm not expecting Bam to be traded. I guess Ware could be traded if we have the Durant conversation again. Although I'm really moving off the go get Durant thing. I know I was strong on it before the deadline, but I'm backtracking faster than the Heat get back on defense for sure. Because I can't see Kevin Durant making that big of a difference with this team as currently constructed. But we know Pat's affinity for him and the organization's constant pursuit of him, and it may require Ware to move up. It also had a conversation with Matt and with Adele, the draft episodes, about if you wanted to move up in the draft, say you had the, I don't know, 10th and 22nd picks, and you wanted to get up in the top 6, because there seemed to be a consensus about top 6, maybe franchise changing type players, you might include Kel'el Ware to get up there. But assuming he's here, do you think he comes out of training camp as a starter next year? They'll commit to this?
I mean, he has to. If we're projecting another season of one of these other guys starting at the 4 next to Bam, and we're preparing for, just no. Like, let's just Kel'el has to start at that point with whatever the roster looks like, whatever additions are made, whatever small changes are probably we're heading toward. I don't expect like the one scenario where Kel'el doesn't start is if he was shipped out for Kevin Durant, because other than that, I don't see a scenario where he isn't. And that's why I just don't understand, not to keep pointing it out, but like him moving to the bench in some of these matchups when this is one of the few long-term plans on the team. This is one of the few things that you're going to move forward with of your core that are going to stay the same for future seasons, hopefully. So I'd rather you just figure it out now when nothing really matters. But yeah, I think there's an idea here where he's going to start most likely going into future seasons, but I think it should work. Like this isn't an area where we were skeptical before, where it was like about things working on either end of the floor. Like we've seen it work. It's just about it helps when one of them are shooting the 3 ball at a decent level. I think right now the hard part about that lineup, and I think why one of the reasons why Spo's are going away from it, is both of them are not really hitting consistently from 3. Like there's not like a true worry about either one of them out there, so it's kind of leads to less spacing. That's why I've said, back when they were trying to be competitive, if you're at this point in the season, if you want to work Bam and Kel'el the right way offensively, like you kind of have to play Tyler and Duncan together. I just think that's the only way to open things up along with Wiggins, just to kind of give you some spacing element, and it allows you to work things right offensively with them two running off pin downs from Kel'el and Bam. They can operate on their own sides of the floor and all that stuff. But I think one of the reasons why things went downhill, Davion has been amazing. He's been one of their few bright spots on this team. But when you're running these lineups with Davion, Tyler, Wiggins, Bam, and Kel'el, there's not a lot of spacing. I think it honestly hurt those lineups hurt Kel'el more than anything. I think if you want to help your core guys, you kind of have to play the 2 shooters together to try to create opportunities. So yeah, right now that's the issue. And not to go into the roster, but like when you brought up like this roster is not good enough if you go get the guy like that. There's just no balance with this roster right now. Like it's like you put one guy in the starting lineup, you're ruining the defense. If you put the other guy in, you have no spacing, but then your bench is ruined because the guy behind there's no one to like coexist with him. It's just not a good roster right now. And Jovic isn't the reason why they went on an 8-game losing streak and they look non-functional, but I do think they miss him a ton. I think just the fact of the energy factor, the ball handling factor, getting a lot of your guys off the ball, the stuff on the break that just looked a lot better with Jovic. Like Jovic was playing really well. And the other part, he was shooting really well from three. Like he was one of your better 3-point shooters and spacers that you could run in these lineups. So they didn't have a replacement. When you're replacing that with Kyle Anderson, who's not a spacer, that is just a totally different player, it's going to look a lot different. So it's not crazy to say that it's hurt them a good bit.
All right, let's project this forward a little bit for Kel'el again, assuming he's going to be a starter next year. He's played more than Bam played as a rookie. Bam played behind Whiteside. He's actually got slightly better numbers than Bam did as a rookie. I don't know that it's always looked as good as Bam did as a rookie, but with Bam, it was in contrast to Whiteside, who we were kind of starting to get tired of at that stage, and some of the lapses and all that other kind of things. And Bam just did all the right things, and I think that's why people were like, "Well, why isn't he playing more?" And then there was the conversation, "Why isn't he playing with Whiteside?" And Spo tried that a little bit. That didn't work very well for the obvious reasons. You couldn't have worse spacing than you could have had between the two of them at that point. But I guess going forward, I mean, what do you see as his future? I know it's early. Is this like a long-term solid starter in the NBA? Is there potential borderline all-star potential here? He's got to put on weight. We know that. The Zubac thing jumped out to everybody. I think it's just, and Zubac has had a very good year with the Clippers. That's not a bad player, but he's not Jokic. Like, and it was a dominant performance by him. He was pushing Kel'el around. So where do you see this going?
I kind of fall more into the long-term starter kind of thing. Like I think he's going to be just a big factor in general. Like just when you have a 7-footer that can go up and get the lob and kind of deter the rim, like we mentioned earlier, like that alone is like every time like I see people that are not in Miami when they watch him, they're like calling him Wemby light. Like it's just because he looks like a similar style, runs the floor kind of in a similar way. Obviously doesn't have his handle or shooting, but there's just certain flashes around the rim that you see. Borderline all-star is interesting. I'm more so looking. I mean, you're going to need real consistency with him to be in the borderline all-star category. Like I said, he's had peaks, he's had flashes in a rookie year. You're going to have lows, but I think there is a case where not to compare it to Whiteside because that's not what this was, but like you mentioned Whiteside, where it was like you kind of knew what Whiteside was going to give you in a game when you were early in the game. You don't want that to be the case here. Like you don't want the motor things to pile up. You want to just have a more consistent game where you kind of know around you're going to get 15 and 8 like that kind of style more than you getting 25 and then getting 6. And the thing is with bigs is sometimes those numbers aren't really on them. Like sometimes it's on the game plan, sometimes on your guard play getting you the ball in those spots. So sometimes you can get away from that. It's not really your fault. But there's going to hit a point here, I think, with if the roster is looking similar, where he's going to have to demand things, where he's going to have to say, or Spo's going to have to demand things and say, we need to get this guy going because the only way to open up things, we don't have Jimmy or others to generate paint touches. Our way of generating paint touches is to get Ware going around the basket, is to get the ball up in the air to him, find ways to get it to him in the low post where he can just shoot over the top of guys. That's going to be their new way of generating rim pressure in a lot of ways. So if they can lean into that, if he can lean into that, I just think more so it's about adding size, adding consistency, containing defensively. Like there's the one thing that I'll say this is the last thing I'll say. The one thing I think that they need to tweak more than anything with his game is defensively staying down on his feet, because you're 7 foot, you can put your hands up in the air and you can deter a shot more than jumping. Like there's so many times where he will just jump for no reason, where it's like he's a helper. I'm going to rotate over. He jumps up in the air, which wasn't needed. If he makes it, whatever. If they miss it, you have an offensive rebound coming on the other team because Ware just jumped out of position. So it's like more so just those little things. It's about staying down your feet, contesting, with his size and not getting out of position, boxing out, trying to get rebounds, like all that stuff. Once again, we're evaluating a rookie, a young rookie at that, but I do see him as a kind of a long-term starter. I think he has, big time potential.
But then I don't know that most people after Bam's rookie year projected him as a multi-time All-Star and an Olympian either. So these things can go either direction. Also, though, last year, Jaime Jaquez made first team all rookie and can different kind of player, but opportunity's been there for him this year, especially without Jimmy, and for the most part, he's not taking advantage of it. So you don't know where players are going to go in their second year, particularly as they get scouted even more. You've talked about them scouting him against the back line of the defense and the lob and all that. There's more of that that's going to happen. This is a big summer for him. I don't think it's a bad idea for him to play a couple games of summer league, kind of like Jaime did this year, even though it didn't lead to anything. I wonder if they'll go that route, but I don't think it's a bad idea to get him out there a little bit. I know it's tough for bigs in that scenario. He played well in summer league last year, but he also wore down physically over time. And I'm also curious to see now that we've hit the 50 game mark, what these last handful of games look like for him, because it's been interesting because his minutes have varied so much that it's been hard to really tell. Okay, is there a rookie wall coming? But there could be. All right, thanks to Brady. We appreciate it. We'll have more episodes coming up. Of course, the Miami Heat have now lost 8 straight, so we're trying to just evaluate everything more forward-looking at this point. And then, obviously, we're going to do a lot of Jimmy Butler coverage prior to his arrival on the 25th. It would be the ultimate troll, though, if he just decides to sit right before the game. It would not stun me. It would not stun me at all. But there you are. All right, have a good one, everybody.